It's their expectations. People don't want to let people down. I think we are, as humans, very good at saying yes to things and saying no to ourselves a lot. You can't expect to be on your A game 24/7. It's not achievable, as much as we all like to try and push for that. Your people will look up to you and think, do you know what, it's okay to just be honest about this and speak about it.
This is Kirsty Birch, an accountant turned workplace wellbeing and performance coach and a seriously powerful motivational speaker.
When you take off long-term sick, it's really hard to come back from that crisis moment. Imagine if they put a few boundaries in place. Imagine if they just asked for some support. Imagine if they had some resources and a toolkit where they could manage and I suppose put that bit of resilience in.
We talk burnout, brave leadership and how getting the most out of your employees starts with putting their well-being first.
I think we need to go back to remember we are human. So rather than looking at it all from such a performance or a KPI approach, maybe focus on the fact that treat people how you want them, you would like to be treated, and they will 100% perform a lot better for you. It's not really rocket science.
After years crunching numbers and leading teams in high pressure finance roles, Kirsty realised the bottom line isn't just profits, it's people.
When you've worked so hard to get somewhere, you feel like, I've got to be putting this effort in, because like you say, I want to be achieving, I want to be getting higher in my position. It's so easy to neglect your health.
Trust me, you're going to want a notebook for this one.
This is Kirsty Birch, an accountant turned workplace wellbeing and performance coach and a seriously powerful motivational speaker. After years crunching numbers and leading teams in high pressure finance roles, Kirsty realised the bottom line isn't just profits, it's people. Today, she's the founder of Work It Well, helping businesses supercharge performance by actually giving a damn about employee wellbeing. Kirsty's on a mission to show leaders that you don't have to choose between compassion and results. In fact, the best businesses don't. She combines lived corporate experience with practical, no-nonsense coaching to help organisations create cultures where people thrive and perform at their best. In this episode, we dive into why mental wellbeing isn't a nice to have, it's a business critical strategy. We talk burnout, brave leadership, and how getting the most out of your employees starts with putting their well-being first. Trust me, you're going to want a notebook for this one. Hi, Kirsty. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Why don't we start with a brief intro into sort of like who you are, what you're all about, what you do, who is Kirsty Birch?
Okay, so are you ready, Phoebe? I better sit. I'm Kirsty Birch. I'm the founder of Work It Well, and basically I help leaders cut through the rubbish that most people don't talk about when it comes down to mental health, well-being, leadership. I go in, I help them sort out their culture, I put the right sort of processes in place, the right strategies in place, and we make sure they look after their people in the right way.
Incredible. Really, really brilliant stuff. Yeah. In a nutshell. In a nutshell, there it is. But like such an important conversation at the moment anyway, across like socials and everything. And obviously I followed you for a while. But I think this topic is more important than ever, and it continues to keep being more important than ever. Obviously you talk a lot about human-centered leadership, and for someone that's not in the space, sometimes that can feel a little bit like, is that like a bit of a buzzword? So what does that look like in real life, human-centered leadership? What is that?
It's literally like, I think we need to go back to remember we are humans. So rather than looking at it all from such a performance or a KPI approach, maybe focus on the fact that treat people how you want them, you would like to be treated, and they will 100% perform a lot better for you. It's not really rocket science. So
yeah,
the human-centered stuff is just about making sure that you're aware of things. You've got a bit of emotional intelligence there. You speak to people on a one-to-one level. You make that time to have conversations. That is where you find out about awareness. So when you find out you're aware of something, then you can put the right processes, the right initiatives in place, rather than trying to just chuck things at something which you've got no idea about if it's going to work. At least the human side is, having that conversation. And I think being empathetic in your approach, people will feel more comfortable with you. They will open up more. And I guarantee you now you'll get a lot better result from it.
Yeah, and I've had this so interesting because, like, it's bizarre, isn't it? We're humans first before leaders. So how is it so hard? Yet we all know a leader that we've worked for, a manager that we've had, that just didn't care about, maybe didn't come across as caring about individuals, and they were very like profit first or performance first or whatever that may be. So why do you think, for one, why do you think that is? Why did it become such a thing that we've got to talk about being human?
I don't think it's it's rubbish, isn't it? It's just
I don't get it.
passionately a thing. But I don't think some people generally do it with any negative intention. I think it's you get so wrapped up in your job. I think you get so wrapped up in pushing forward, and especially if you're a business owner or a business leader, it's you want to get the best out of your business. You want to be successful. What I think people lose in the process is that your people are your biggest assets. Get them on board, look after them in the right way, and I can tell you now, they will help you steamroll that even 10 times faster. And I think that's kind of the hard part. And I think sometimes it can be a bit of a generational thing as well. I think we're in a different age now, totally different times where it's okay to talk about things like this. 20, 30 years ago probably wasn't. And you've still got people in those roles that are very much stiff upper lip, get on with things. And we don't talk about that because that shows that we can't cope with things. We're all about performance, which I think that needs to change now. And I think it is changing. It's just enlightening people to the benefits it can bring rather than finding it a nice to have. It's got to be a priority.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these are the people we've learned from as well. So it just gets passed down, doesn't it? That's how you lead a team. But there's a new way of doing things. So that's what
you can still lead your team in that same way. You obviously still striving for the same end result, is that the business is productive, the performance is high, you're doing well. Especially if you're a larger business, obviously that's what your investors want. So that's not. That doesn't have to change, but I think your approach can change. You can pivot as in regards to, listen, look after your people. The return on investment you get from it is huge anyway.
Yeah.
If you're scratching around, especially at the moment, we've got all these things that are coming in place with national insurance increases, and everybody's scratching around and making people redundant because they're looking to save money. Well, actually, if you just looked after what you already got, I can guarantee your bottom line will be improved anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked a little bit when we had obviously a catch up prior to this, we talked a little bit about why it's so powerful for a leader to open up that they're struggling. And obviously that's quite a rare thing to see. And I think it probably stems from what we just talked about, how it's always been that stiff upper lip and leading from the front. But for a leader to open up and say that they're struggling, why would you say that would be so powerful? For anyone that's thinking, oh God, I couldn't do that.
I think it just shows a bit of vulnerability and that you are human. Yeah, you can't expect to be on your A game 24/7. It's not achievable. As much as we all like to try and push for that, it's not achievable. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have positive days. But I think for a leader to step up and say, listen, I've been there. I've had my own struggles, or I might be, having my own personal issues at the moment, but I'm able to put boundaries in place. I'm able to do this. Explaining what they have in place and how they're still able to function at work in a positive way is a big thing, because that means that your people will look up to you and think, do you know what? It's okay to just be honest about this and speak about it. I can guarantee you now, when you have conversations about things and you open up to someone, you've prevented so many things from happening. You prevented that person from getting to a potential crisis point. That means that they're not going to go off long-term sick. That means it's not going to cost you a lot of money. Yep. So I think having those preventative measures in place is a huge thing. And I think if a leader steps up and says, look, we're going to put this in place, we're going to support you in the right way, we know how it feels, we're human as well, and the door's always open, so there's a safe sort of space there and a safe environment, I think people will just feel more comfortable working for you. Yeah, feel more comfortable working for you. They're not going to get up and go and look for another job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's this reluctance from leaders because there's also so much talk as well around boundaries, and I think there'll be, I can think of a few who might see it as an overshare and a potential, because I know especially a lot of we see this in finance, which is obviously a lot of what our candidates and clients are, but we also see it in recruitment where usually you're promoted because you're a high performer, not because you've got leadership qualities, but because you can bill well. And I think what then happens is you get this thing where you try not to be friends with the people that you've worked with. You're trying to show that you're a leader instead, and you don't want to blur the lines. And so sometimes you can feel as though, oh, well, I better not tell them that. I don't want to overshare. I don't want them to think we're friends. I'm trying to be a leader. And I think sometimes you could just overthink it. It's just coming back to be, like you're saying, be human.
It's true though, but I think, like you said, just because you have to have that kind of hierarchy in place, which is fair play, people will respect you being their leader because you're leading from the front properly. I think being open enough to have a conversation with your team member and checking in on them and saying, "Are you okay? Can we support you in any different ways?" That just shows that you give care. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it shows
exactly.
you care. It shows that you're more than just about their role. You're there for them as a person. I don't think that's a bad thing, but you are spot on. I think people get promoted for all the wrong reasons, and the problem is they're not trained in the right way to be manager level. They're not trained in the right way to be leadership level, and that can cause problems because that's when you get a bit of toxic leadership there.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't feel comfortable, someone damage manager, 100%. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to your manager, who are you going to feel comfortable talking to? The space is not going to feel safe at all. So yeah, they might be a big biller for you. Also, as well, what you'll find is a lot of, high performers will high perform for a reason because that's a coping mechanism a lot of the time. So if they're dealing with burnout or they're dealing with other issues, at least that part they can control with their performance. That doesn't mean that there's nothing going on behind closed doors, I can assure you.
Yeah.
A lot of high performers I know have struggled with many things.
Yeah.
That's at least one thing they can control. So they might show up and work really hard, but then on the back, the other side is that they're really struggling and they won't admit that.
Because I think we assume that it shows up as underperformance, don't we? Whereas I've known a few recruiters that I've worked with who've had their best years as a high performer in the business when they've been going through a whole world of shit in their personal life because it's a distraction. So they throw themselves into work and you're there thinking, wow, this person's amazing, this person's great, not recognizing the signs. Because a lot of the time as well, they're wanting, like, I'm thinking of one person in particular. She ended up making herself quite unwell, unfortunately. And it was so sad to see. But what she'd done work-wise is doubled her performance on the year before. So everyone was like, wow, what's she done? What's she unlocked? How's she got? And we were calling her up. How are you doing this? She was like, I just got shit going on at home and I'm distracted. I'm distracting myself. And I thought, it's really that's really such a shame. And spotting that, I think, if someone's not open.
And this is the thing, if you're aware of something, if you are trained in, I'm not saying training is going to cure everything, but it'll give you a massive indication of when something's not right. If you've got people that are trained, and that's not to say to fix things, it's to say to spot things and signpost in the right area. If you've got people doing that, big game changer. If you've got a leader who is emotionally intelligent and they can pick up on someone's behaviour change or they can notice that someone's just a few things, language has changed. It's not hard once you're aware of it. No joke, Fifi, I can walk into a networking room and I hear about 5 or 6 different stories from people. Marriage is broken down, something else has happened. They don't tell everybody that. And I think it doesn't take a lot. It's not having a conversation with someone. They feel safe, open straight up. But you're right. I've seen a few people like this now where high performance and it's a coping mechanism. That's it. It's a form of distraction. They're able to get on with that. And then that means they don't have to think about something else. And it's very easily done, which is why you see people like sportsmanship, like sports people, they'll go out high perform, and if they get injured, massive crash because it's something they can't deal with. So the outlet, they try into getting fitter quicker, and they try to think. All that does is cause mental blocks there, and it's not healthy at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we talked about so your background is finance, right? You were
I'm an accountant.
You're an accountant, which I didn't know. I didn't know until you mentioned it. I didn't know that. But you had some really interesting insight. So we know that the world of finance and accounting can be full on, and I think a lot of people don't realize that unless they're close to an accountant. So if obviously I recruit for accountants, I speak to a lot of people under such heavy pressure, with like massively short on staffing in their team, and they're like just having to pick up 2-3 people's jobs. I just overlooked because they're doing it. No one's thinking, we need to invest in this team because they're fine. But like they're not missing deadlines. Like they're performing, they're fine. And I think there's a lot of it's like a pressure cooker sometimes. It's full on. Why do you think that is? I mean, you'll have seen it firsthand.
I think it's one of those things, like I said to you earlier, it's the expectations. People don't want to let people down. I think we are, as humans, very good at saying yes to things and saying no to ourselves a lot. And I think that's mainly where we see it. High pressured industries, you see this a lot where they've got to get, they've got a bill, they've got to do certain things, they've got to get deadlines, they've got to. Can be quite seasonal as well. So you'll probably see accountants crash more in like 31st of January, or you'll see them crash more, the halfway through the sort of tax year. But it's a tough gig. It really is a tough gig. I remember when I was in this industry, the amount of people that expect something from you in regards to clients, in regards to colleagues, it's immense. And when you've worked so hard to get somewhere, you feel like, I've got to be putting this effort in. Because like you said, I want to be achieving, I want to be getting higher in my position. It's so easy to neglect your health. So easy to neglect your health. And before you realise it, like you said, the outside influences, the work influences, they build up until the point is that you just burn out. And that is like you said earlier, someone gets ill. Then you take off long-term sick. It's really hard to come back from that crisis moment. Imagine if they put a few boundaries in place. Imagine if they said no a few times. Imagine if they just asked for some support. Imagine if they had some resources and a toolkit where they could manage. And I suppose put that bit of resilience in place rather than ignoring it and pushing through. I think, can you imagine that way? I think you'd see a whole different ball game in the accounting field. I don't miss being in that stressful environment. Probably miss as an accountant with a practice earning quite a bit of money. I'm not going to lie. However, I don't miss it in regards to the expectations that was from my clients. I remember having my phone on, like still speaking to clients at 5 to 12 at night to submit their last tax returns. It was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I didn't have any boundaries in place there. I was not spending time with my family enough. I was not doing the right things that were benefiting me and serving me well. Now I've switched that around. Total different ballgame.
And that could be where it's so difficult as well, because it's not just expectation from clients, it's expectation from the company that you work for.
Yeah.
And if you are working in practice and you've got tax deadlines, it's like it's just okay that, it's tax year end, so, we're all going to be working overtime. We'll do pizzas to the office because everyone's working late. And it's like, it's so difficult then to be the only one to be like, no, I'm not doing that, because you probably be seen as not a team player and all the rest of it. And it's that fear of being the only one. No one wants to do it. Everyone's sat there thinking, I've got better things to be doing. I don't want to be doing this. We shouldn't be this close to the deadline. If there is someone listening to this thinking, oh God, that's me, is there sort of like one thing that you'd suggest, like just to have, obviously you mentioned boundaries. Is there something you did when you were working in that space, or something you wish you did in hindsight?
You know what? I think I just wish I'd spoke with more people and had conversations around this, because like you've just said, I can guarantee you now, you will not be the only person feeling like this.
Yeah.
They're probably the only one brave enough to step up and say something. I guarantee you're not the only one. So I think having those conversations, and I think myself looking back now, I should have just been a bit more. I think awareness comes from as you grow as a person. Like now it's taken me, I had to go through that to learn from those experiences. So it's easy for me to say that now, but I think managing your time, if you can manage your time well and having conversations with clients and earlier to try and encourage them to get paperwork in earlier is definitely going to help you. But I think also speaking to your leadership team, and if you've learning every single year that there's an issue there and people are burning out, surely that's an indication of that you've got to change something or get better processes in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a leader, I think you've got a duty to take that on board and encourage that to happen.
Absolutely. We've got clients that have just so obviously we've got accounts practices that we work with that just shift the deadline for their clients. Like so many other clients are none the wiser, and they're like, we need to listen by this date, and it's like a month prior, and it's just it's not that difficult, is it? Like, but I think so many businesses are just that busy, that under-resourced. You feel like you are on the back foot all the time. And I suppose what I would say there is, if you are in that boat and it's getting too much, just have a chat with us, because we know the ones. We know the ones where people are consistently year on year struggling.
You're aware.
So, we could try and sometimes, from a recruiter's perspective, they're the firms that we're targeting, because we know those people are desperately unhappy. So not only are you going to, talking about a return on investment for, business owners, you've got recruiters all over your people because they know, like it's common knowledge. Like think of the return on investment if you were just to nip that problem in the bud. People wouldn't have their head turned. I think that's the thing. Like, how easy is it for a recruiter to turn the heads of your people? And if it's that easy, it's going to cost you a fortune consistently. So this is the most cost-effective way.
You're spot on, and I think someone earning over, and this is minimum sort of areas now, but if you've got somebody earning over 30 grand a year and you've got to replace them when they leave, it's going to cost you that again.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I spoke with somebody recently, I think they was on about 100k a year. When they left, it cost their company 50k to replace them, because not only you are replacing that person, you've now got to retrain, you've got to recruit, you've got to get that person making sure that the customer experience is now good, because they've got to build relationships again. It's a tough gig. It really is. And I think, why would you waste that kind of money when you can get some temporary help to alleviate that problem? Why would you put that more pressure on somebody when there's...
And the other thing with that, I mean, there is the caveat of, you might not keep somebody forever. Someone might leave for a different reason. They might be so happy, yet there might be something else, circumstance change. But the other benefit, I suppose, to really having that human-centered approach and becoming known for having people know the firms where there's happy people, because they'll know people that work there, or it spreads. So you can actually then avoid your recruitment fee, because you're just attracting people anyway. You're coming to you, and that's one of the ways that I think a lot of businesses will overlook. That a lot of businesses are trying to invest in their EVP, and what are our values, and what's our benefits package, and how do you treat people? That's your EVP. I mean, this is a question that I want to ask you for my own benefit as well, but I think it will resonate with people listening. So my team I'll ask them how they are, what they need, and they're very much like, yeah, good. And if it's really shit, they'll open up. But I want to be sort of like encouraging those conversations. But I don't want to overstep or make them feel uncomfortable, because they are, they are quite private people. I'm the oversharer of the group, and no one else, really wants to crack on. How should I go about those conversations? How can I encourage people to be a little bit more open?
I think, firstly, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
You don't, we were talking earlier, I don't think you need to overthink conversations. Ask somebody if they're okay. Check in with them. If they say I'm fine, which you'll probably get 99% of the time, ask again.
Yeah.
Always ask twice. That's the first thing I say. You'll be surprised that when you ask that second question and just pause, gives them time to actually think about it. And also it shows that that little bit of persistence, shows you care a bit.
Yeah.
Don't just do it once, just because someone says they're fine that week. If you're noticing generally somebody's behaviour has changed, or you're noticing something's not quite right, checking in again.
Yeah.
Do it a couple of times, For me, all that shows is that person actually, they've taken the time out of their day to make sure I'm okay. And don't overcomplicate the conversation. You don't have to go full steaming in and say, oh, you're okay, as if you're right home. You don't have to do that. Just have a conversation in general. You will pick up people's language.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. People are always, when you ask someone about their self, 90% of the time, we're humans, we want to talk about ourselves. It's just that little bit of a barrier there that's stopping us. And that's generally, do I feel safe enough to do this?
Yeah.
If you are feeling, giving that person encouragement to feel safe in that environment, even if they don't open up today, and they might not next week, they might in a month. Do you know what I mean? And I think putting some things in place where if you as an organisation could provide a little bit of a resource bank, just something there. You don't have to spend loads of money. You don't have to do anything like that. I think just sending out an email once a week, checking in with your team. Having a little bit of one-to-one once a month, just checking in, It takes 5 minutes, as long as it takes to make a cup of tea. Would you like a cup of tea? Come and make a cup of tea with me. Let's have a quick chat. it's not hard. You don't have to go full steam rolling in. I think you can make it as light as you possibly can. The thing with mental health, and this is what people forget, is that it's a heavy subject. It is a heavy subject. And I think a lot of people are not educated enough around this term mental health. So they deem it as a weakness, or they deem it as people think I'm crazy. No, guys, there's two differences: a mental health condition and a mental health.
Yeah.
Your mental health is just how you look after it. It's how you think, feel, and behave. And I think the more we encourage that talk, it's exactly the same as your physical health. What are you doing today to look after your physical health? Yeah, I'm going out and I'm having a run. Okay, what are you doing today for your mental health? I'm having conversations. I'm getting out to having a walk today, or, I'm checking in on someone, having that conversation I haven't had a while with my nan. Something, you've got to do something every single day, I think, to put into that little bucket. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, fill it up with all the positive things, and then it doesn't have to get to that pressure point, because that's too short.
Absolutely. I heard it framed as mental fitness.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I think people frame it in different ways because it makes it it resonates better. Like a mental health condition, guys, that's when something is medicated. That's when you've got like schizophrenia, bipolar, even depression. You're getting people that are on some kind of medication or in some kind of institution. Your mental health is just how you think, how you feel, how you behave. That is it. So how are you looking after yourself? What is your thoughts today? What's your feelings around this? How's that affecting your behaviour? And that's why I said to you, if you can notice someone's thoughts, feelings or behaviours have changed, there's a massive indication there their mental health is showing up in a poor way at the moment. So what can we do to support them? Get that point right. It only takes, and this is what I think people don't realise, in the UK, you only have to be deemed as having a low mood for 2 weeks. You can go to your doctor and be deemed depressed and be put on medication and signed off work. So it doesn't take very long that, to be fair, in the UK, that we just accept that, we pump someone off with some medication to deal with something.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity within our organisations to stop that from happening. We have an opportunity to prevent so much before someone gets to the point where they have to go off work. Yeah. So I think, having a conversation.
Yeah, and it's
what is moving is for that reason.
As a leader, just kind of encouraging, like I find it easier to I think I can resonate with this idea of mental fitness as something that you do that's proactive. And so, for example, I love yoga, but I don't do it for like the physical. I do it for the mental. Like I really love how it quietens my brain. And I love meditating. It took me years to realise that actually, no, this is meditating. I don't have to have a completely quiet mind. But sometimes I just like to sit there and just listen to relaxing music and just put my headphones in. And like journaling, love journaling, gratitude lists. And for me, they're the little things I do that build a bit of a routine that contribute to my mental fitness. Kieran, who's my team, and you won't mind me saying this, January time, the weather, like we work from home, it was getting to him a little bit. And I sort of said to him, what are you doing for your mental fitness? It looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'd heard it on a podcast and I was like, yeah, but what are you doing to use that? And he was like, well, like walking the dog at lunchtime, get away from your desk at lunchtime. That's something that leaders can be encouraging. If you've got somebody who doesn't take the lunch, and we've all got one, who just sits at the desk right through the lunch and scrolls through his phone, get outside, let's go for a walk, like let's go get some fresh air, who wants to come? There's things you can be encouraging and showing like, no, it's okay, you don't have to work through lunch. You can get up and move about, it's good for you. And so we touched on, you mentioned burnout earlier, and I think burnout is another thing. I mean, I have friends that are like, I'm so burnt out. And I'm like, they absolutely might well be. But I think it's become that word of when you're just feeling a little bit tired, you just need a rest. True burnout, how does that show up for people? And how do they know that, how can you see that coming?
I can talk from experience myself. So I've had this a couple of times where I've worked way above I need to be working. And the only expectation and pressure really was what I was putting on myself, to be fair. And I just crashed. It got to the point every single Christmas where we would have, say, a couple of weeks off, because I worked in construction industry as well. So every couple of weeks I'd get to Christmas, I would be ill, physically ill. Like I would catch anything going around. It would just, it wasn't enjoyable anymore. I wasn't enjoying that time with and I could guarantee it, as soon as I started relaxing, it would hit me like a ton of bricks. It got to the point where I wasn't physically able to work. Physically, mentally, I was making mistakes. Even though I was putting all this effort in, I was still making mistakes. I wasn't being nowhere near productive. And I probably, looking back, definitely wasn't as efficient as I thought I was.
Yeah.
I wasn't benefiting clients because I wasn't showing up in the way I should have been showing up. So if anything, I was damaging not only myself, but also that customer experience.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a good thing. And as much as I thought I was doing, just because someone is present doesn't mean that they are effective and being productive. I can tell you that now. I would rather have 10 people at work with me who take that time out and go and have their lunch, and like you said, go for those walks, because I know they're going to come back in a fresh sort of mindset and they're going to be more, productive for me, rather than someone who's sitting at their desk all day, because they probably won't be with me in 6 months. They probably would have got to the stage where they're signed off long-term sick. They're stressed to the hilt. And stress can look different on everyone. I think other people forget this as well. There can be some good stress where it can kind of motivate you. And then there's stress where you are snapping at everyone. You're irritable. You're losing relationships. You're shutting people out. You're high blood pressure. So this is what I'm saying. It's not just a mental thing. It's a physical thing it has on your body. Exactly the same with burnout. The problem is when you get to burnout stage now, when you've gone past the stage of being aware of something and ways that you can make changes, that's crisis. That's where you're going off for a long time now.
And we don't know it is until it's too late as well.
Not at all. Not at all. And I think also then you've got the issue of when someone's coming back to work, it's like that anxiety is people judging me then. That overwhelm, people overthink things. When you get to that stage and you've burnt out and now you've got to come back into an environment where everybody probably knows, even though they shouldn't know, why you're off, it's hard to reintroduce again.
There's a lot of stigma still, so much stigma. And I think what we're talking about here, there's a lot of and this is where leaders can be really sort of reflecting and looking at what they've got. So many of this stands for culture, of the organisation, but also the micro culture of what you've got in your team. Like I've worked in businesses where one thing would be totally cool and totally normal, like going out for a walk on your lunch in one team. If you were to get up from your desk in another team, where are you going? Like part-timer, and
it's judging. It is judgy, yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think that's what you have. I mean, even if you're working in an organisation where the overall culture isn't that great, you've got a lot of sway over that as a manager for your team's experience. And I think we shouldn't be looking at the bigger picture of the company and thinking, oh well, it's just not how it's done here. No, as a manager or as a leader, there's always little things that you can do, within that bigger organisation. So when you were saying you'd stop for annual leave or you'd stop for holiday and you'd get ill, I think so many. I can't even tell you how many conversations I've had. And that's become so normal, like we expect. Oh, it's Christmas and it's great. Kieran actually said the other day, because he works too hard, and I have to really force him to take his annual leave, like to the point where I tell him if you don't, it gets to the end of the year, and I tell him, if you've not taken any annual leave by this day, I'm logging you off everything. You have to take some time. He loves being go all the time. Yeah, he's constantly. He said this morning he's full of a cold. So I can't believe I've got this cold again. It's the third time this year. Yeah,
there's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that. Now, luckily, he's going on annual leave on Thursday for 2 weeks, and I'm like, hallelujah.
Like, there's a reason for that, and that's exactly what you're saying. That's your body saying you need a bit of time out.
Yeah,
like, I can only take so much. It's like anything. When you get on a running machine, now this is what I say to people, you use your car, you're only going to get so many miles before it gets to the point is I need new tyres, or I need refueling, or I need this. And it's exactly the same with us, there's only so much your body can take for it needs a bit of recharging. You can't be on continuous, like I said earlier, you can't be on your A game 24/7 as much as we all like to think we can.
Yeah.
It shows a lot more strength when you say, I need a little bit of time out, come back again stronger.
Otherwise,
It's not, you don't have to be, no one's expecting you to. And if they are, then you're in the wrong workplace. Simple as that.
and we've all felt that where we've been on holiday and we've come back and we're like, wow, I've got brain power. I've got ideas.
Literally.
Yeah. As you know, I went away with the girls last September. I went to Greece for a week. 5 days straight, I slept on a sun lounger. I had a book, and I'd wake up and the book would be on me, and I'd think, because we were in the middle of nowhere, we were supposed to have a really chill time, and it was. I didn't wake up. On day 6, I launched off my sun lounger. The girls were like, oh wow, she's alive. And I was like, oh my God, journal, I need my journal. And I had so many ideas. And as it happens, it was the September before last. As it happens, one of the ideas that I'd had went on to mean I restructured the entire business. And the business model that we've now got is 11 times more profitable. And I wouldn't have been able to do that.
You just needed 5 days.
I needed 5 days on a sun lounger just to sleep. But I remember thinking, like, even the girls were saying, like, you are doing too much. You're running yourself. This isn't normal for you to come on holiday and not be able to wake up. Like, your body is desperately trying to cling on to the rest. And then on the other side of it, I was like, ding, like I'd just been bored, like I was brand new.
Question for you now then. I know you're meant to be asking the questions, but question for you now.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that experience?
Well, did you know, not to feel bad, that downtime feels productive now. And I think that's still a work in progress, because that's how I'm the sort of person that I'll put the microwave on and then I'm thinking, right, I've got 2 minutes, I can do this washing up while that's on. You know, like I'm constantly wired to be looking for how can I be productive in this moment. So
when you stopped and you gave yourself a little bit of self-care, you was able to then be 11 times more productive, mate.
Yeah, I know.
That is a huge return on investment. Whatever way you make it. This is why I say to you earlier, like, it's not about just performance KPIs. Look at the wellbeing KPIs, because that's exactly what you've done. You invested into you as a person within a business.
Yeah.
You invested, and look what you got from that. And that's why they say for every £1 invested into wellbeing and mental health, there's a £5 return at least on that.
I can believe
100% ROI. Like, I don't think people get that. Where are you going to get 400% ROI? If anyone knows, come and show me, because I'll invest into that place. But it's there for the taking. And if you've got 10 employees, they say on average it costs around £1,652 per year. So I'm going to get financials now, guys, because I can't help. £1,650 roughly per year. If you've got 10 employees and you was able to invest into that, for one, you were not going to be getting that cost anymore. You're going to be getting a return. So imagine if you've got 5 times return on that instead of it costing you. Like, even if you just invested that one figure into a workshop for 10 people, it's not going to cost you 9 other people for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people really identify how much it costs. If you've got 10 people, that's $16,500 a year. Your cost it's gone without you even realising that you're spending this every day, because I can guarantee you are. You've got like 100 people, like $165,000 a year. It doesn't take long. Like, I work with organisations that are in their thousands. When they're in their thousands, we're talking silly money, like millions a year, on something that they could really change very easily. Just get invested in the right initiatives, the right strategies in place. Problem is, I think, like we said at the beginning, people don't want to open a can of worms, or they're not educated enough to know where to start. And that's why you don't have to know where to start. I think it's about getting the right people in that can help guide you in that right way.
Yeah.
Those people are your people.
Yeah.
You ask them, they will give you the most feedback that you need, and you can restructure from that.
Yeah.
Really not. You don't have to know what's going on in another company or what's going on everywhere else, because that doesn't matter. What's going in your business? What's going on there? What do your people feel like? What's your customer experience like? And that all comes down to your employee experience. If they're not feeling good, that's going to ripple down to your customers. That's where we were saying at the beginning. Your people will be your biggest ambassadors, and they will flock to you if you look after people the right way.
Absolutely. And I do think it is that thing, isn't it, where it's hard to measure the ROI, and
It's not if you come work with me, girl.
well, yeah, for you, absolutely not. But for me, the only thing I've got to go off is, well, that one idea to restructure the business, hire these different people, has equaled this. I know that it's because of that holiday. Like, that's what I know and believe. So I can believe these statistics because I've felt it myself. Now, in saying that, Kirsty, I'm ashamed to admit that I've forgotten all about this. I'd forgotten all about that holiday and how beneficial it was. And obviously I'm going on that leave in 7 weeks.
It's so easy to do though. When you get back into the midst of like running full steam ahead again, you forget about what gave you that steam in the first place. Do you know what I mean? And that was that little bit of time out. That's not a bad thing, because then the thing is, we're having a conversation now and you was able to relate back to that and remember, actually, do you know what? Yeah, you're spot on. That's exactly what happened with me. And maybe I need to do more of that. So yeah, this is your calling now to go and book 4 holidays this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And my partner's going to be like, who have you been speaking to? It's Kirsty. But I also think as well, just touching on that, for anyone listening to this saying, oh, well, we did a mental health thing and, we didn't see any ROI. It's a bigger thing than just booking 1 workshop a year. That's a great start. But you've then got, what are you doing off the back of that? What are you changing? How's it, you're looking at your culture, like, what is that? It's a bigger thing than just 1 day a year, or it's Mental Health Awareness Week. Let's do something this week. It's a continuous thing, and I just think it's such a great thing for leaders to be learning about and taking time out for themselves to really try and improve that experience for the team. So no, that's amazing. I think, yeah, this whole conversation has my cogs turning now, and I'm thinking about my own team and what do they, how are they right now? So if you're listening to this, just think about your team, like, tune in, because we don't always do it. You've got to make a conscious effort, haven't you, sometimes, to really kind of tune into, is everyone all right at the moment? Is there any things that we know about?
If you're an organisation that sends out employee surveys, if you're generally doing that, what are you doing with that feedback?
Yeah.
Because I could tell you now, I speak to so many organisations that send out employee surveys, and Wellbeing will be on there, and nothing's done after. Your team will tell you that they need support in these areas. They'll tell you, and if they don't tell you they need support in their areas, there'll be other areas that indicate very highly that they're unhappy.
Yeah,
I can tell you that now. So many people look at that, thanks for the feedback, they do nothing.
Yeah.
So when you then send out the next one the following year, people don't care. They're not going to fill it in.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to get the real kind of honesty in that feedback. When you've got to that point and people don't feel comfortable, what's the point? And they get to that stage, you're pointless even sending out those surveys. It's pointless doing anything. If you're having an awareness day, like you said, or you've got a webinar or a workshop going on, fantastic. Get the feedback first of what your team needs support in. So don't just go and put someone like me. I'm probably shooting myself in the foot here by saying this, but I'm being genuinely honest. Don't just come and book me for a mental health day because it's Mental Health Awareness Week. As much as that awareness is brilliant and I love it, it gets the ball rolling. But go and speak to your team first. Find out what their challenges are. If they're telling you that all of them are struggling with their sleep, do a sleep webinar. If they're telling you that it's their mental health or they're at burnout stage and they're under pressure, do something that's going to be able to help them manage that better. Put some resilience like techniques in place. Put some sort of boundaries in place that they can manage. If they're telling you they're super stressed or there's a management or a leadership problem, go and get some leadership training and don't. It's not your people that's the problem, it's you. And I think people need to look at that and be very aware that you can get the return on investment if it's invested in the right way.
Yeah.
When you just guess something, there's going to be nothing. You might get a bit of chatter. No one's going to follow that up, which means that, no, you're not going to get an ROI.
Yeah.
Not at all. Do it for the right intentions, and I guarantee you now you will.
I really hope that, I think that just talking